The latest at the top and bottom of the hour. News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
With us on the live line this morning is Dr. Pamela Smith. She is a health and wellness expert. She's got some tips for you, Mom, so hang on and pay attention. Pamela, good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I am well this morning. Thank you for joining us here on West Michigan's Morning News. All right, give us some tips. What do we need to put in that lunchbox on Tuesday?
Well, interestingly, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have shown that obesity is rapidly growing over the last 30 years in both children and adults. So sometimes we can make some just small changes to really help. And one of those is not to put things in the lunch with high fructose corn syrup.
Well, here's a problem, because you got to have stuff that's portable. And so when you start going to buy all this prepackaged, convenient, easy stuff, all of that has something in there.
Yeah.
I look at your list from dyes to the juice boxes, which goes back to your, your high fructose stuff. How do you get around that and still make it portable and keep Mom from spending hours a day on lunches?
Well, I totally agree. Being a mom and a grandma myself, you have to make it easy. You have to also make it interesting for the child. And there's a lot of new things out now to look at. High fructose corn syrup is very different than any other sweetener. All the other sweeteners in the world, including sugar, require a carrier to get into the cell. High fructose corn syrup does not. It goes directly into the bloodstream and into the cells. So this may contribute to weight gain, perhaps diabetes, a lot of interesting studies out there. So the first thing we can do is nice and simple. Include things that are fresh. So peaches, plums, nectarines, bananas, all of these are really fun to include instead of something that's already prepackaged.
Trying to get kids to eat things like that, though, that can be tough when the kid next to them is sitting there eating a bag of chips or whatever.
Yeah, and you talk about chips. I mean, those things can be addictive, and you even talk about how it's harder later in life. If you start eating those when you're a kid and you need to cut them out, it makes it difficult.
It does. When you start eating things as a child, then you do end up growing up to be an adult that commonly eats those foods. And it's not saying to avoid chips. Chips now and again are fine. It's a moderation thing. Moderation is the key to health.
And when you look at it, a kid like me where my mom and dad were parents and said, here's $3, go through the hot lunch line.
Yeah.
I see kids still these days, and my wife and I have to pack lunch all the time. Lunch boxes, cold lunch, or whatever you want to call it, still more popular these days than the hot lunch?
Well, it's really a variety of things that are popular, and it depends on the school system. A school system in Chicago decided to partner with a local restaurant that did Mediterranean food. And they discovered that it was actually 74 cents cheaper per lunch to have the Mediterranean restaurant actually bring in food to that school system, and the food was healthier. So I think there's different ways that we can do it that are not as expensive, still convenient. In that case, the parent didn't even have to pack the lunch.
Yeah, and then there is one other challenge, and you don't necessarily address it here, but I think you talk about making it interesting. Here's the thing that I run into. The first grader brings home the lunchbox. You open it up, and there's the stuff you packed the morning before,
right?
Because they have recess right after lunch, and what's more important than eating is recess. But the bottom line is you got to make sure whatever you're putting in there, they'll eat when they get to school, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's face it, kids do trade lunches with other children, and that's part of the fun of it all, too. So we don't want this to not be fun for kids. But instead of, for example, always a juice box, if we're going to include a juice box, we want one that has real juice in it. So we have to be careful with the wording on some of these. It might say real fruit juice, but what you really want is all fruit juice.
Yeah.
So if we just look at the packages, it's much easier.
It's very interesting. All you have to do is look at the label, the nutrition label, and read the ingredients. It's as simple as that. All right, Dr. Pamela Murray, thanks for your time.